Ring the Tibetan bowl this morning. Allow the sound to resonate around and through you. We come here to find a moment of refreshment and rest from our journeys. No matter where you are on your journey, pause here. Take a quiet breath. Rest in peacefulness. Be renewed and restored.
Number 17 in A flat major from the first book of the Well-Tempered Levy of my mom.
Thank you, Michael. I'll just say, first of all, I had a little tweak to some eye surgery, so I'm a little too colorful to broadcast this morning, hence the sunglasses. So good morning and welcome members, friends, and visitors, and those of you joining us on Zoom this morning to the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River. We are an intentional community gathered around our mission to support each other's individual spiritual journeys and to inspire, inform, and support all who seek a more equal and just community. We are pleased that you're all here with us this morning, be it in person or via our feed. And I'm service leader this morning, Nancy Holland, pleased to be working with Reverend Catherine, and we have a guest musician this morning, Theo Kem, and we welcome Theo. We also have Michael at the piano, Deb as our tech team back there, Darlene and the other volunteers mentioned in your order of service. We could not put on these services every week without you all, and we are very grateful. I do have a few announcements this morning. We are in need of coffee hosts and greeters. Thank you, Eileen, for stepping up at the last moment for a greeter, and Diane for coffee. There are some announcements on the whiteboard, some Martin Luther King activities, the breakfast on Monday, posters, as I said, are on the whiteboard for that. There's also an announcement, the homeless shelter, which is open now, really needs some volunteers to help. activities are providing a dinner and being there during the dinner from like 5 to 7. Overnight, there is a paid person overnight, but they like a second person as a volunteer, or a morning shift from 7 to 9 to breakfast. The number is on the board if you're able to volunteer your time for that. Also, there's a sign-up sheet on the table. If you have an entry card to the church and haven't already signed your name and the number that's on the card, please do that. And also, we have our upcoming stewardship drive that will begin on February 1st. So that's a really important service to be present for, and we hope to see you all there. And now, if you'll join me, and would you like to light, or read the words, and I will light.
I just have a quick announcement that I wanted to make as well. I want to thank everyone who provided their input into the screen as it came up, because this is our sacred space and our sanctuary. And I also have want to invite our tech team, anyone who's available and willing to come up and join me here, because I really need to thank them for all the tremendous amount of work that has gone into envisioning what a digital ministry would look like for this community. It isn't done. It was always intended as an experiment. I'm cutting in and out, aren't I? No? Okay, sounds like it. And so if willing and available, Dave Hart, Michael Morris, Deb Reed, Jim Lavin, David Beeler, and John have all given so generously of their time to envision this way forward for us. Because we have a virtual hymnal. I had honestly spent as much time in theological school learning how to craft online services. This is going to be a significant part of future ministry. And we need to be able to do it well to thrive. And they have been so generous. And I am really looking forward to all our artists and creatives who make this a sacred space, helping it be beautiful and bring it to full fruition, because no one's going to do this alone. And we are a congregation of a certain size with a certain space. And so starting with what's possible is important. Whether that's true or not, no ageism here. Right? So we invited tech to start with what's possible for us, so then we can have this second part of the conversation. Does that make sense? And so I want to invite everyone and really express my appreciation for everyone helping us on the second step. For me, it's been very analogous to now for me, this is a story. I've only been with you for 1.5 years, but their beautiful walkway, it was pragmatic and then made beautiful, right? And the same here. We do plan to take the screen down today and return it. This is not what our end solution will be for anyone who had any concerns. And I'm really glad we're moving forward together as a community, because we are a covenantal community. And so my commitment, and part of why I'm saying this right now, is I also owe the tech team and all of you an apology. Last week when you came in, this was a surprise. Never should I allow a change in our sanctuary to be a surprise. And I did. And that stops here. That is my responsibility. And I apologize to each and every one of you, and I apologize to my tech team colleagues who have worked so hard, because it made the reception of their work harder. Does that make sense? And so this is my responsibility, and then a commitment that I will not allow that to happen again. And thank you for your forbearance with my rather long, but I feel important announcement.
Thank you, Reverend Catherine. And now we'll light the chalice. And the words are in your order of service. Okay. It's entitled The Light for Everyone Who Comes Into the World by Elizabeth Strong. Reverently, I offer the symbol of our hope and high intent. Reverently, I bequeath this flame to you. This is the light that is lit for everyone who comes into the world. Bear this light to others, one by one. Let the flame go from life to life till all is lit with its warmth. Tell that the light means wisdom. Tell that the light means kindness. Tell that the light means understanding. Tell that the light means tolerance. Tell that the light means sacrifice. Tell that the light is a vision of a fairer world. Tell that this is the light that is lit for everyone who comes into the world. And now please rise in body or spirit as we sing our first hymn, number 128 from the Gray Hymnal, that for all that is our life, and we will sing 3 verses. Our topic this morning has to do with the journey through life and the different stages of it. And William Shakespeare probably had one of the most famous lines about the 7 ages of man from his play As You Like It, where he describes, probably in different terms than we would today, but what he called the 7. Infancy, crying and helpless, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. The school child with the shiny morning face, but reluctant to go to school, dragging his feet. The lover, sighing like a furnace. The worker or soldier, he called them, but I think today we would say the young adult moving into a career, building their future. The middle-aged justice, now secure in their future, having gained a few pounds perhaps, full of wise thoughts. And into old age, kind of not a view we would look at today, shrunken and spectacles on nose and pouch on side, voice turning back to a childish treble. And the 7th stage, a second childishness, the final stage of helplessness, without teeth, eyes, taste, without everything, leading to oblivion, a rather bleak look. I don't think we'll hopefully have this bleak a look today, but it's clear that we pass through different stages of our lives and our actions and roles change, and we'll explore some of that today. And now we'll move on to a responsive reading in your Gray Hymnal, number 664. Give us the spirit of the child. So we will go back. Okay. And if those of you on this side, my left, will begin, and those on my right over here, read the response in italics, please. Give us the spirit of the child. Give us the child who lives within. Child who receives without the privilege. The child who gives without judgment. With the child's ears, that we may hear the mythical times. Give us a child's truth, that we may be immersed in system. And now we'll have the time in our service where we can share our joys and concerns. Please come forward and I will give you the mic and light a candle. I will light a candle, the first candle this morning, for all those in our congregation that may be facing difficult times at the moment. Anyone like to share?
My grief today is for all of those killed by ICE: Keith Porter, Silverio Vilgueras Gonzalez, Jaime Allens, Roberto Carlos Montoya Valdez, Jose Castro Rivera, and Renee Good. I also have a grief and a joy to share on behalf of Jan, who is currently in the hospital, but is feeling well and is well cared for, and that is what he asked me to convey to you. So it is shared with his consent.
I know some of you were there yesterday for the memorial service for Al Mathwick. Yes, it was just a wonderful send-off by his family and his friends, and it was quite amazing. Thank you.
I'll just follow up on that because I was going to mention that also. It was a lovely service, and there were two things that I really came away with. One that was I was very sorry that I hadn't taken the time to get to know him better. And I think that's true for so many of us. We come here and we get to know each other at one level, but not at the depth. And the other thing that I really took away was what his family said about tell the people that you love them when you can.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have a personal joy to share. You'd think that this gets easier over time, but I still get my heart beats so quickly standing up here. But since I found the grace and boldness to share with you the health concerns I've been dealing with over the last few months, it seems only right that I share a phenomenal update that I am so excited about. So tumor number 1 is gone. Tumor number 2 still in the works, but I had my 4-week post-op for tumor number 1, and it was not only benign, I'm gonna cry, but my white blood cell count has gone down a lot. And so that's a really good sign. And thank you all for your prayers and your blessings.
So please don't respond immediately because this is a positive. It might sound negative to begin with. 12 and a half years ago, I was diagnosed with an incurable cancer and given 4 years to live. Because of medicine today, because of all that's going on, I was in a clinical trial that ended 2.5 years ago, and I recently marked 2.5 years without a cancer treatment, which is unheard of for an incurable cancer.
I want to follow on the Al Mathwick service yesterday. I was so impressed with Emily and Hannah, their daughters. The poise and eloquence that they demonstrated was just so impressive. Those girls grew up in this church. And, you know, kids that grow up in our environment with our orientation, I think have something special. And those two really proved it yesterday. And another young man sitting right over here that grew up in this church too. He has the same stuff. And we're proud of them all.
I'll light this final candle for those joys, concerns, thoughts that we may still be holding in our hearts. And we have a moment of silence. Blessed be. And now Reverend Catherine will lead us in the meditation.
Let's take a deep breath together. I invite you into the spirit of meditation to find a generally upright position, calm, focused, shifting that focus inward. Our responsive reading today invited us to claim the mindset and openness of a child. For some, this may literally work, and for others, it may best to claim a beginner's mind. Children are often masters of beginner's mind, and we all have encountered that with the endless whys. As we grow, we build those identities in our egos, and healthy egos are part of how we try to frame and initially answer, who am I? Why am I here? Where do I belong? Or maybe even, what does belonging mean? These initial answers ground us as in the world that is, and support us through what I've come to call the first half of life. In the second half of life, as we do the work to become elders, we dismantle some of those small ego answers and work our way towards larger answers. This isn't determined by age, but an experience and the sacred work of changing our minds. Some never make this journey, and others will make it remarkably at a remarkably younger age. If you consider yourself, wherever you consider yourself on this journey, I invite you to reflect on how those answers to those questions, what they are for you right now, and how they may have changed. To hold the first half of life answer in comparison to a second half of life answer. Who am I? Why am I here? Where do I belong? And what does belonging mean?
Okay, at this point in our service, thank you. We will take an offering for the mission and the works of this church, for we are the keepers of the flame. And during the offertory, we will hear from Theo, accompanied by Michael. Oh, thank you, so much, Theo, for sharing your music with us. And thank you for your generosity and support of this congregation. Now, the reading this morning is different than the one in your order of service. We did a little last-minute change-up. It's called The Two Halves of Life, and I believe it was a paper presented at the Center for Action and Contemplation back in 2015. And begins with a quote from Carl Jung. "One cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be of little importance in the evening, and what in the morning was true will at evening become a lie." So it was Carl Jung who first popularized the phrase, the two halves of lives, as compared to Shakespeare's seven, to describe the two major tangents and tasks of any human life. The first half of life is spent building our sense of identity, importance, and security, what I would call the false self, and Freud might call the ego self. Jung emphasizes the importance and value of a healthy ego structure, but inevitably you discover, often through failure or a significant loss, that your conscious self is not all of you, but only the acceptable you. You will find your real purpose and identity at a much deeper level than the positive image that you present to the world. In the second half of life, the ego still has a place, but now in the service of the true self or soul, your inner and inherent identity. Your ego is the container that holds you all together. So now its strength is an advantage. Someone who can see their ego in this way is probably what we mean by a grounded person. Jung writes of his own experience, quote, "It was only after the illness that I understood how important it is to affirm one's own identity. In this way, we forge an ego that does not break down when incomprehensible things happen, an ego that endures the truth, and truth is capable of coping with the world and with fate. Then to experience defeat is also to experience victory." In the second half of life, we discover that it is no longer sufficient to find meaning as being successful or healthy. We need a deeper source of purpose. According to Jung, again quoting, "Meaning makes a great many things endurable, perhaps everything. No science will ever replace myth, the communicator of meaning, and a myth cannot be made out of any science. Myth is the revelation of a divine life in man. It is not we who invent myth, rather it speaks to us as a word of God. Science gives us explanations, and that is a good start, but myth and religion give us meaning, which alone satisfies the soul." And now, Reverend Catherine.
The gifts of this phase of our lives are numerous. Let us start with a grounding that life, just to be alive, is a gift. And in the service, we have grounded as beginner's mind and the mind of a child, and then discussed the first and second halves of life. So let's continue from there. Our first half of life brain is building a beautiful prefrontal cortex. Arthur C. Brooks wrote a book, Strength to Strength, on how this is vital to those first half of life tasks that we just heard about. Our prefrontal cortex is primarily responsible for working memory, executive function, and our ability to block out those extraneous information to focus on something specific. Like, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear anything but Theo playing, right? Were there other sounds? Absolutely. We could have measured them. But my brain blocked that all out, and I heard Theo's beautiful music, right? This supports that learning and development and proficiency. Brene Brown calls this locked in her work. The primary outcome of our beautiful prefrontal cortex are rapid analysis and creative innovation. And this is the stuff of those large paradigm-shifting discoveries. Whether it's Darwin's work on evolution, Paul Dirac's who was a Nobel-winning physicist, creator of the quantum field theory, who actually wrote the Principles of Quantum Mechanics, which is a textbook still in use. Huge accomplishments. Or Linus Pauling, who won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes in different fields. One for his work on chemical bonds, and the other for his work to abolish nuclear testing at the height of the Cold War. Totally different fields. That's a huge accomplishment. Paradigm-shifting work. And these paradigm-shifting works all happened before the age of 30. Then these people lived the rest of their lives. And for all of us, every one of us, between 30 and 50, our prefrontal cortex starts to lose function. Darwin and Pauling continued to try to push through their work and work harder, thinking that something was wrong with them, and if they worked harder, they could do it again. And they died thinking they were failures and miserable in their later life. And that's tragic. Dirac wrote a short poem on how physicists do their best work before 30, and then lived with equanimity as he transitioned towards professorship down in Florida University and time on the beach, and engaged in living his best life. That's a way too. The transition between 30 and 50 is on par with most professions, whether it's professional athletes, and it crosses over into other professions as well, but there is a variation in the timing. It always happens, but exactly when does shift a little bit. Our reading talked about the purposes of the first and the second half of life. People really struggle if the ego that was built in that first half of life is a container based on early success or being special, rather than grounded in who they are. If our ego is built on being special, successful, pride, a need for prestige, fame, and admiration, fear of loss, or money, we are set up for a difficult transition in midlife and later. I think that's what Jung meant in our reading when he shared it was only after he experienced something really hard that he understood how important it was to affirm one's own destiny. So what could that paradox look like? So let's reflect on the great composer Johann Sebastian Bach. Arthur C. Brooks' description of Bach's work, because I don't really want to have a discussion or an argument over who's the best composer. We can have that conversation, but that's a coffee hour time. Born in 1685 to a long line of prominent musicians in central Germany, J.S. Bach quickly distinguished himself as a unique musical genius. In his lifetime, he published more than 1,000 compositions for all available instruments of his day. The greatest cantatas for orchestra and chorus ever written seemed to fall off his pen by the dozens. His concerti were compositionally perfect. His piano works simple and elegant. Clearly, he accomplished much and was a profound innovator, just as those named earlier. Yet, there's more. Johann Sebastian Bach married twice and had 20 children. Half of whom survived to adulthood. 4 became composers, and his son Carl Philipp Emanuel, or as we call him usually when we refer to him nowadays, CPE Bach, led the emergence of the classical music that replaced the high Baroque style that Johann Sebastian Bach was so proficient at. CPE Bach served as the inspiration for Joseph Haydn, Ludwig van Beethoven, and Amadeus Mozart. Huge. Up to 100 years after Bach lived, the famous Bach was his son, not him. Johann Sebastian Bach chose to redesign his own life from innovator to teacher. He dedicated the last 10 years of his life to the art of fugue, a collection designed to teach Baroque compositional techniques. It's a kind of textbook that is performed in concerts, like any other great work of art, literature, or poetry. Can anyone else imagine sharing a textbook in a concert or a performance and having that be something well received? That's mind-boggling, right? That's the kind of teacher he became. We still use those pieces today. But most importantly, he died happy and content with his life. And he didn't know that we would be talking about him here. As far as he knew, he had been totally eclipsed by his son. And he was proud of him. He wasn't working harder. He wasn't pushing through. He changed his mind. The differences in these two phases of life come back to both biology of the brain. So obviously I don't entirely agree with the reading. And that's okay. We can be in conversation and share things we may or may not agree with. Science, I believe, is super important. In fact, my scientists will be unhappy with this one. I actually consider science a type of mythology. Myth helps us make meaning of the world. Good science does more than just answer questions. It helps us make meaning of the world. So much like many other mythologies, there's a reason I feel fully comfortable talking about science and philosophy and religion all combined, because they're ways we make meaning of the world. Dr. Raymond Cattell in 1971 described two intelligences, fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Okay, now this time I know I cut out. Can we hear me now? Yes! Fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. The fluid intelligence is the domain of the innovator, that gift of the prefrontal cortex that we just talked about. And it peaks between 30 and 50, and it declines. And as I started to experience this, I honestly started to wonder if I was losing my mind. Things that were so easy became hard. Things that were hard, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was kind of wondering what's going on. And I want to share this because there's no reason to wonder if we're losing our mind. We're just growing, and that's okay. But when people tried to tell me there was nothing wrong, it kind of felt like gaslighting, because I was changing, and having that affirmed was really important. And there are choices that we can make to continue to grow and thrive. How do we get from that fluid intelligence to that crystalline intelligence? We can make choices that help us do that. So crystallized intelligence involves synthesis. It helps us use the complex ideas and, really importantly, express them to others. For example, our vocabulary never stops growing, both in our original language and in a foreign language. I've had the hardest time in my life. The hardest thing I've ever had to learn is foreign languages. I'm terrible at them, until now. Spanish is coming so much easier now. Don't know why. But that's part of crystallized intelligence. Our brain does that better. Our ability to apply information and to integrate information from different sources and contexts continues to grow, and our ability to make meaning for ourselves and others and interpret the ideas of others. When people say something and you listen in the group and you realize, yeah, they said something, but everyone's hearing a different thing and that's not what they said, that is a skill to interpret the idea of others. That also grows throughout our lives. Crystallized intelligence creates elders, sages, disciples, and spiritually grounded people. And it shows in various professions. Remember how I said there was a variation of the decline between professions? The more applied the work is, the more crystallized intelligence it uses. So applied sciences, history, teaching, these professions will build on our crystallized intelligence and welcome us to thrive long into elderhood. In fact, some historians actually write their best papers at 80. So their fluid fund of knowledge continues to grow and enhance their work. I love the metaphor that Arthur C. Brooks gave of using the New York Public Library. Our fluid intelligence is our young, fast librarian. The information appears in your hands before you could even imagine wanting it. But crystallized intelligence is the size of the library. It may take you longer to find it. You're coming up with someone's name 5 minutes after they're down the street. I know I'm not the only one that's happened to, right? But when I'm talking to someone and they're saying, oh, we're talking about this, and there's 5 things that could connect to, maybe in my 20s there were 3, but there's more now. I can build deeper connections. This can be a time also to return to the mind of the child, as we asked in our responsive reading. In this space, we have the opportunity to just stop caring quite so much about what people outside of our intimate circle think. I think that helps us trust and receive and sing and receive without reservation, give without judgment, or be afraid, neither to need or to love. Being invested in wisdom and meaning, as in the mind of the child, invites our imagination, the receipt of beauty and wonder, and meaning-making in the second half of life can invent a faith without cynicism and an exploration of mythical times. So I want to offer examples from 3 different religious contexts. Lao Tzu, author of the Tao Te Ching, written in the 4th century BC, wrote, I shall overcome with the simplicity of original nature. The simplicity of true nature, there shall be no desire. And without desire, one's original nature will be at peace. And the world will naturally be in accord with the right way. This resonates with me as similar to what we are asking for in the mind of the child. Our original nature. On another level, that original nature connects to oneness, which we've talked about before, and a oneness with everything, both internal and without. Definitely second phase of life stuff. Another example rose in our UUCR Bible study last week, where we discussed one of Jesus' hardest teachings for me, Luke 14:25-33, the cost of discipleship. Now the large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned to them and said, whomever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost and see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who will see will ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and is not able to finish. Or what king is going out to wage war against another king will not sit down first and consider whether he's able with 10,000 to oppose one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions. That's hard to make meaning of. Father Richard Rohr described the verse as describing the first half of life with our connections, our thoughts, our concerns about what people will think about us, and the beliefs that our families gave us, and our connection to our material wealth and our assessment of the investments and whether they will pay off versus if they're the right thing to do. And in comparison to the second half of life, focus more on what is right, what is the right thing to do, the discipleship and spirituality of Jesus that he was teaching as an itinerant rabbi. We have to be ready to turn away from the life we were given and had built to be able to turn inward and connect to the soul. Another tradition that speaks to this process is Hinduism through the ashrams. Ben Karathaman, or known simply as Atra, or teacher by his students, described the Hindu ashrams as Bhakichara, the period of youth and young adulthood dedicated to learning. And I'm going to invite you to listen if you hear some Shakespeare in here too. Girashata, when a person builds a career, accumulates wealth, and maintains a family. Vanaparasha, from the two Sanskrit words meaning retiring and forest. And please note, I am definitely not a Sanskrit scholar. I am confident my accent is terrible. We purposely begin to pull back from our old personal and professional duties, becoming more and more devoted to spirituality and deep wisdom. And Sayanasara, the last spiritual stage that comes in old age and is totally dedicated to the fruits of enlightenment. I really prefer that description to Shakespeare's. The moment you realize that the self you know, and that you are the self, and you are not the body, you know you are the infinite truth. And the recognition of that is samsara. So we have science and 3 religious traditions talking about the same kind of thing. So to me, that indicates a universal element of human experience. And that would make this part of what I consider Unitarian Universalist theology. We've covered the first half of life and the second half of life. So now it's time to talk about the transition and this invitation to liminality. Arthur C. Brooks offers that liminality means the time between work roles, organizations, career paths, relationship stages. Midlife is a time for liminality. Midlife, or the transition, is where we learn to truly embrace yes and. Simple, but not easy. One of my favorite authors and scholars and teachers is Brené Brown, who said learning to embrace the power of paradox across every part of our lives, from how we live, love, parent, and lead, is the great developmental milestone of midlife. We have to choose to develop our relationships, engage in the spiritual journey and exploration, and experience our weaknesses. Leading from our weaknesses will allow us to grow in connection and eliminate any self-objectification. Anything that is I am with a single answer probably is not capturing all that you are. We contain multitudes. The journey to true self, to our soul self, our big mind, our inner prophet, our inner philosopher, it's how we rewire our brains to be motivated by passion and meaning and purpose. And so I'll close with my prayer. My prayer is for all of us to live the wisdom of Venkayaraman. Know yourself and go within. Quiet your minds to find the treasure that is our inner selves. May we all find the ways to live fulfilling first and second halves of life. Brave the transition and go from strength to strength and recognize that our weaknesses, our losses, our griefs, our declines can be a gift to ourselves and others. Please rise in body or spirit and join our voices to sing in hymn 6. And from our gray hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath, we will do 3 verses.
For
And discussion.
So as the other fellow scientist, because I worked in biochemistry for years, I exactly agree with her. And to me, science has always been the description of the divine. Every aspect of science is to further describe what we initially thought was magic or God-given or universe-given, however you want to say it. And to me, the fact that we're always trying to figure it out is witnessing of the divine. That's what science is to witness the divine and fully understand it, in my opinion.
When Alexander Graham Bell first heard the first message on the phone from his assistant down the hall when they were testing the telephone, he heard the voice of his assistant and said, "What hath God wrought?" Meaning, what have we discovered here that is created? So going from the technical to the appreciation, the reverence for what the universe is. That's what I'm hearing right now.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Deb, for your comments.
Yeah, I find that as I've gotten older, my ability to communicate and teach has definitely improved. And I think that's been the greatest gift. It wasn't the research and the scientific work I was doing in college and grad school, but I'm most rewarded by watching my students succeed.
Thank you, Paula.
Well, you know, from going from the first part of life to the second part of life is where my ego and my greed become a problem. And I'm thinking about especially my love of gardening. Well, you know, I'm going to be 82 this spring, and still I'm grasping onto the idea of still growing all my vegetables. So that second part that I'm trying to figure out how to do it gently and accepting is not so easy. At least I'm not finding it very easy, but I'm trying anyway.
And you're naming the paradox. And please forgive me if I at all implied this was easy. Not gaslighting, but definitely not easy, right? Not acknowledging the journey causes its own harm, separate from how hard it may be, right? Well, thank you all. And so my concluding words, as we go forth with our open and calm hearts, let us bring peace and grow in wholeness. Live in the light of integrity and integration with the spirit of life within ourselves and all living things, being fully present to each moment, easy or not, of this one wild, wonderful, beautiful life.
And now we'll extinguish the chalice. Words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Please join us for coffee and conversation, and everyone get home safely and enjoy whatever weather's coming. Be cozy and warm, and have a good week.